When a disaster strikes, everyone involved can go through the stages of grief.
In the case of the March tornado, it's not a clinical term, but a lot of people went through the frustration stage. And insurance companies can be a big part of that stage.
And tonight, THV 11's Rolly Hoyt introduces us to one woman hit hard by the storm and then hit by roadblocks by her insurance carrier. And the way to get help can come from an unexpected place.
Yolanda Spencer had found her dream home.
It was as close as perfect as possible. In the end, in a matter of 22 seconds, everything changed.
And then those 22 seconds of violent winds turned into more than 22 days of frustration as she faced recovering.
My neighbors were being housed by their insurance company that night. But the next day I realized I should be able to file a claim as well.
Spencer's home on Walnut Valley is part of the tableau thousands of drivers see, attesting to the damage left by the March 31st tornado. 3 months later, this part of the disaster area still looks as scarred as it did that day when Spencer and her neighbors emerged from wherever they took refuge.
I just smelled an immense amount of wood. It was just like fresh cut wood. I climbed out, just frantic. I mean, we didn't know what to do. We were just, everybody was out in the streets and we were just trying to figure out what to do and what's next.
Amid a flood of aid and assistance, what's next has varied greatly for victims. And for many driven to frustration in the weeks and months since, insurance problems are often the cause. Some, like Spencer, discovered the protection they bought or the company they bought it from did not meet their expectations.
Just the first person I spoke to they said, well, I'm not the person you need to speak to. You need to speak to someone else. And that went on for probably about 4 or 5 days, honestly.
Spencer ended up at the Disaster Relief Center a short distance away from her devastated neighborhood. Unable to reach anyone at her small insurance company, volunteers directed her to the Consumer Services Division of the Arkansas Insurance Department.
The storm season is very active this year, and so usually we're getting a lot of calls. We've actually stopped the calls for right now for this, but somebody is upstairs answering those as we speak.
Russ Galbraith is the Chief Deputy Commissioner and oversees the investigators who field complaints from people like Spencer. They serve as umpires over the huge underwriting industry.
The insurance industry has responded very well to this particular catastrophe for Arkansans, from what we can tell, because when you have a relatively light number of complaints versus the amount of claims, it just shows that people are, for the most part, getting taken care of.
Galbraith says so far there have been more than 6,000 claims filed and $250 million paid out. As for complaints, Spencer's is one of 14 investigated and closed since March. Approximately 35 more are still open. We reached out to the people with closed cases, and that's how we found Spencer. Other stories we've heard, disputes over how much of a roof had been damaged and how much carriers would pay.
Sometimes it's policy issues. Maybe a consumer doesn't necessarily understand why something is not being covered, and the insurance company has told them that a certain issue is not going to be covered. So it's just understanding the policy.
And sometimes, as in Spencer's case, a call from the state gets the process started. An adjuster eventually made contact with her, and that's when she realized her policy just didn't have some of the features offered by larger providers. We contacted that company. They said they don't comment on specific customer policies. We're not going to name them since they and Spencer came to an agreement. She has changed insurers, though. Spencer and Galbraith say this is an example of getting what you paid for, but even if that's the case for you, Consumer Services can still offer help.
We're talking to people in maybe their worst time. They've had a loss, and we're here to be I guess a conduit, so that if they are having issues with a company, whether it's miscommunication or misunderstanding or whatever, we're able to kind of bridge that gap and hopefully come to some type of resolution.
Spencer echoes that message and hopes people who may still be overwhelmed hear it. She's also sharing what she's learned.
Just be proactive and being more involved in choosing your policy as well as your policy holder, and also what your policy entails. Because in said situations, it's only going to go by the black and white.
In Little Rock, Rolly Hoyt, THV 11 News.
A determined woman who got answers. Now, if you want to open an insurance investigation, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. They are not lawyers. They can't give out legal advice, but they can make sure companies are following state statutes and regulations. The link to reach out to them is in this story on THV11.com.